proud graduate of Westside High School.
Woo! Cougars in the house.
Howard University
Thank you.
and Purdue University. Her career in public relations and communications spans more than 25 years, having worked for the Peace Corps Recruiting Office in Arlington, Virginia, the Office of Congressman Charles Rangel, JWA Boys and Girls Club, Lake Area United Way, Horseshoe and Trump Casinos, the Gary Community School Corporation, and Johnson Publishing Company, publisher of Ebony and Jet magazines. Yo, this is crazy. In 2009, Chelsea joined the executive team at US Cellular Corporation, I haven't heard that name in forever, as communications manager. There she managed 4 of the company's public relations firms while promoting the brand of the nation's 6th largest wireless phone company. From January 2012 to July 2015, Chelsea served in the administration of Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, the city of Gary's first female mayor and the state of Indiana's only female African-American mayor. As Director of Communications, Chelsea oversaw media relations, crisis communications, special events, branding and marketing for her hometown. In the fall of 2015 to spring 2019, Chelsea was employed by the Chicago Urban League, where she served as a Director of External Affairs and Special Events. She continues to serve as an adjunct professor at Indiana University Northwest and Indiana Wesleyan University, teaching courses in communications, social networking, and special event planning. Since 2015, Chelsea has operated her own PR consulting firm, WHITT, where she develops public relations and social media strategies for her clients, as well as presents workshops and trainings on social media and public speaking. In spring 2019, she made the big leap in full-time entrepreneurship while expanding her clientele to service small business, nonprofit organizations, and governmental agencies. A longtime member of the Trinity Missionary Baptist Church, Chelsea sings in the choir, oh my gosh, is a member of the Geek Squad, assists the social media, and serves as a church hostess. She volunteers for the JWA Boys and Girls Club, Sojourner Truth House, is a member of the Black Relations Society of Chicago, the iHeartMedia Local Advisory Board, and NBC5 Chicago's Community Outreach Board. Whittington resides in Gary with her husband Terrell and their lovable dog Pepper. Everyone, please welcome up Chelsea.
Thank you, Faith, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. Had I known she was going to read all that, I would have sent her a little short clip notes. But thank you. You took me down my own personal memory lane that I have been doing this thing for a long time, this thing called communications. Before I move any further, I want to give honor to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, for without him, I would be nothing. I'd also like to acknowledge my client in whose establishment you are seated today, Jay's Breakfast Club in Joplin County. 2601 Broadway, book your event here today. Okay, shameless plug, but that's what we do. That's what communications is. And tonight I have been given the task and the honor, thanks to Faith and her team, to talk about diverse strategies in communications. And I gave it a little thought, but I did ensure that this would be a casual conversation and not a lecture, because she did indicate that I've been a professor for about 23 years. So I could go into lecture mode, but we are going to be in conversation mode, because communications is one of the most critical skills that you can have to get to anywhere else you want to be. You have to be able to put it out there.
Yes.
Convince folks. And so, how did I get into public relations and communications? I'm so glad you asked. So I thought I was going to be a teacher of special needs, because I love to spend time with my cousin, my first cousin, who's deaf. So she taught me sign language, and I just really enjoyed learning to be able to have her light come on through communications, which I really didn't realize at that time. But I was told at the ripe age of 9 by my mother, the late Ida Mae Stalling, that I was going into PR. She said, you should go into PR. And I was 9. I was like, well, what is PR? She said, you'll find out that it's people who persuade other people to do things. And you're always doing that with us as the spokesperson for your sisters and brothers on when we need to go to McDonald's, what time we need to go to bed. I always had an argument as to why we should be doing what we should be doing and what the benefit is for everyone. She was right. Turns out she was right. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a few strategies that can help you with your diverse communications opportunities and the ways that you communicate, but also understand why you communicate the way you do. And it all starts at home. Just think back when you were a youngster, how you communicated at home. In my household, we were required to move away from the television, have a seat at the dinner table, and talk about what happened during the day at school, or whether it was summer camp, or whatever we had going on for that particular day. That was forcing us to communicate. It was forcing us to verbalize. Now fast forward to 2023, you might slide in the back seat after school, and all we see is the top of our child's head because they are on their phones. How was school? Fine. What did you do? Nothing. Who did you meet? Nobody. So, the way you are raised to communicate impacts how you will ultimately communicate. And I'm not saying that every household is like that. There are some unplugged, no phone rules, which I highly recommend, so that we can actually sit down and look at one another, make eye contact, and communicate. How many times have we gone out to restaurants, like even in this place, Jay's Breakfast Club, 2601 Broad, and you see people sitting at the table, but no one's talking to anybody. Everybody's on their phone, and nobody's having a real conversation. I worry about anybody who doesn't take the time to learn the art of communication. So just think about how you communicated as a child, what that environment looked like, and how it has translated into your adult life. Now the good news is, if you're thinking back and you say, you know what, we weren't really required to talk much, you can change that trend even today. Outside of the home, think about how you communicated in school. First grade, Mrs. Avery, may she rest in peace. We had to have current events. Anybody have to report current events back in the day? We actually had newspapers. Do I need to explain? A newspaper is, we would cut out an article, take it to school, and we would actually have a little screen or a edifice that we would step inside of and pretend that we were on television. We had to report the weather. We took turns reporting the weather. We took turns talking about current events and just the word of the day. So again, it was a way for us to communicate, also overcome fears of speaking in front of others. Did you know that the fear of public speaking is number one, and the second fear is death, which means you'd rather die. Most people would rather die than speak in front of a crowd. But it's something that, especially if you intend to be an entrepreneur, that you need and want to know how to do to seal the deal. I was listening to Faith as we get ready to wrap up this series of events. It's about entrepreneurship. And I found out well in advance that if you can't talk about your business with confidence, they're not going to have confidence in you about whatever it is you're selling, peddling, making, sewing, cooking. If you don't exude that excitement and are able to effectively communicate, then 9 times out of 10, the support won't be there. All right, so those are two areas, your home base of how you communicate, and then your school base was another place where you get your foundation for communication. For those of us who are in the church and in faith environments, my very first speech was age 4, and I had to give the welcome for the pastor's 50th anniversary on the Friday night celebration. It was a 3-night thing. How do I remember this? Because my mother made me practice it over and over and over. We would stand in front of the fireplace, and if we looked down, if we did not project, nope, take it from the top. Giving honor to God. What? Giving honor to God. I thank her so much for that to this day. Now I know I don't walk into rooms with my head down, with my voice muffled, with a fear of letting people know whatever it is, the message that I'm trying to convey. So if you have those opportunities even now, embrace them. Don't be the one to say, I don't want that excuse speech. I don't want to coordinate the school play. I don't want to have a role or a speaking part. You're actually secretly, low-key, shaping your own communication skills. So I'll let you take that nugget, marinate on it, and say, you know, I did have some training, so now let me get back to implementing that in my effective roles in communications. Now, the second area is most important in my opinion. It's your nonverbal cues. I can read a room without saying a word. Your body language, your expressions, even the space that you give. If somebody comes to speak to you and you take a quick step back, it's like, oh, okay, I see what this is. An eye roll, a stare, a whisper, all these different nonverbal cues. Sometimes we miss them, sometimes we misread them, but they are always there. And I tell my students in the classroom, if you're lying down, you're letting me know you're disinterested. Or you're saying to me, perhaps you're not ambitious. When we had the icebreaker, now I was guilty, I didn't participate, but really I was just getting ready to be up here. But just say, no, I don't want to do it. That sends a cue already, okay? You're not ready to communicate, or you're sending a message that you don't want to be bothered. Entrepreneurs, we want to be bothered. We want our phones to ring. We want our email boxes full. We want our text messages going constantly, because that means that business is booming and that there is interest. But it starts with communication on behalf of ourselves. So be mindful of your nonverbal cues. I check myself at the door. Sometimes Faith is coming from another country. She recognizes, okay, I'm a little sleepy. Let me let them know so they don't think that I'm just doing this while you're talking because I'm rude. You know, there are reasons that we do some things, but there are other things that we don't pay attention to them. They will send the wrong messages of communication that can ultimately impact your brain negatively. Now, let's talk about the different ways and settings in which we communicate. 2023, I just have to love this generation and time we're in and how we communicate. But for those of you who are a tad bit more seasoned, walk with me down memory lane, will you, for a moment, Tony et al., when we simply could just talk on the telephone. Hello? We dialed a number that we memorized and knew, and we actually had to talk. Hello, Alex, this is Chelsea. Or at a decent hour, Miss Daisy. May I please speak to Miss Daisy? It's 8 o'clock, so you'll have to give her a call tomorrow because she's gone to bed, because that's a respectful time to get up to it's a school night, right? And you might get away with 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Now, I jest, but at the same time, I do recognize that those types of practices also honed my communication skills. Being polite. When someone picks up the phone, smile before you even speak, and it comes through in your voice. And it allows you to give a tone that's warm, even when we didn't have FaceTime. So they didn't know what the face looked like or any type of reaction we were having on the other end. So it all came from how we spoke, our tone, our voice, rate of speed. Now, in a casual environment, it is perfectly fine to use casual terms. In a familiar circle. You can be in a casual environment and not know anyone in the room. So that's when we make our adjustments on how we speak. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with a millionaire who has a t-shirt on. That may be an investor. T-shirt, gym shoes, that's Mark Zuckerberg's choice of wear, right? And so before we are so quick to be casual just because we enter a place where people are dressed casual, we need to learn to read the room. Figure out who's in there, what the circumstances, what type of company we are keeping. Am I asking you not to be yourself? Absolutely not. I'm asking you to be that version of yourself who's able to communicate in a casual environment while making others feel comfortable, but also while not embarrassing ourselves. Now, if you are in a room on a trip somewhere, it's girls' trip and it's the 4 of you on the beach by yourself, we know that type of communication is going to be totally different than the boardroom, that pitch for your business, etc. I'm only here to remind you of how to shift lanes, because sometimes we find certain environments where there are those who aren't able to make that shift, where they're still using slang terms or colloquialisms, and we're sitting there puzzled like, well, what does that mean? So I'm cautioning you to draw that fine line between casual communication and then being able to make the switch to my next point, professional communications. Now, there are several schools of thought when we talk about what is professional communication. May I be frank?
Yes.
So when I was growing up and we were learning to speak and enunciate and learning the King's English, we were told, oh, you're just talking proper and trying to, what is it? Talk white. I didn't see it as such, and I still don't see it as such. I see it as talking proper English, clean English. You know, sometimes people do the reverse to say, well, I'm going to break a verb so I can fit in. Never will I break a verb. That's not the way I speak. I'm not going to create a new language just to make you feel comfortable. All right? And so in a professional environment, let's let go of all those terms that we use in our casual environment. That doesn't mean, again, that you're changing who you are. You're just changing lanes on how you communicate. I find that to be easy for me for the simple fact that I talked about the foundation that we have. So what do we do when we don't have that foundation? A little thing called practice. It's okay to practice what your pitch is going to be, what your conversation is going to be about when you encounter someone who may possibly be funding your venture, who just wants to know more about your venture, or who just wants to know more about you. Do you wait till the last minute to find out, well, what am I going to say? Do you even wait till the last minute? No, you don't. Do you wait till the last minute to find out who you're going to be talking to? That's going to impact how you communicate. I love to look up unknown facts about somebody and say, oh, I heard that you climbed this mountain, good job, or you're a marathoner, or you're training. And not only is that an opportunity to relax the conversation, but it also sends the message that you are a researcher that complements your communication. Going with the flow and pretending that you know someone and what they're talking about doesn't help your brand. Stop to do the research and prepare ahead of time. I have been thinking about this presentation since Faye gave me the opportunity or the invitation probably about 10 weeks ago, which I applaud FaithWorks or Ironworks on doing that for the simple fact that being last minute is another bad form of communication, right? You're sending a message to me non-verbally that we don't have it together, but we love for you to come. But she asked me back in April sometime. So your actions are also part of your professional communication. Lastly, well, 2 more points, because I have a 5-minute sign, y'all. Generational communication. The way we talk to Granny and our seniors and our elders can be and should be slightly different than talking to our teenagers, millennials, just different generations. I have a TikTok channel where I give public relations tips each week. See which we are TikTok tips of the week. And one of my tips a few weeks ago was about having a generational circle. Having people in your circle who are older than you, who are younger than you, and who are also in your age group. Why? Because there's benefit to every generation. How they speak. I always ask my assistant who's a millennial, now what does that mean? It helps me in certain circles when it's time to close the deal. I'm like, so what does that term mean? And then our elders who are filled with knowledge. Do not discount what they know. Just because they don't Facebook and YouTube does not mean they don't have the basic knowledge for survival, for entrepreneurship, especially my father. Hey, Dad, who's 92 and owned gas stations in Gary for 40 years. I'm still getting entrepreneurial tips from him on how to communicate with customers to keep them coming back. So that tip would be generational communication, learning their speak, respecting their speak. I do not speak down to millennials or teenagers or elders. I respect you for where you are in your journey, and I want to learn from each and every age group. And the last thing and the most important thing for me when it comes to effective, diverse communications is your follow-up game. You can talk a good game to me all day long. Great pitch, great proper King's English, great handouts, and then I don't hear from you, or you don't follow up, or you don't answer emails or texts in an effective manner. Or if you haven't heard from me and we said that we were going to do something by a deadline and you don't reach out, or you don't send the handouts that you said you were going to send. All of that effective communication that you did on the front end is now in the garbage, at least with me. And so as we continue these different ways of becoming effective communicators, embrace your style. Don't go online and say, I'm getting ready to talk like her. We each have our own voices. It's just about perfecting that version of us in these different environments, which include casual communication, professional communication, and generational communication with a strong follow-up. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Please check us out at cwhit.biz. Are we doing questions now, or will we do them at the end? Does anybody have any questions for me? I'm happy and delighted to answer them. And if you don't, I see young people in the room. I just want, and with caution, any and all of you who are on social media, to use your social powers for good, because once you hit send, you can't get it back, and it's out there forever. Even if you think you deleted it, someone may have screenshot, forwarded, saved it, downloaded it, whatever. And so while we didn't have that record online growing up, we now as adults have the opportunity to have a record online. What will your record be? That part of communication is critical, because there will be some people who will never speak to you verbally, only know you online. So what does your online communication look like this week?
I love that you said that about the audio, because I ask my son and Nate all the time,
What does this mean? I will Google initials all the time. I'm like, what does that mean? Or FML, whatever it is. I'll go in and and there are books that, cheat sheets that teach us just in case. And I will just pile on to that. Please separate what you type in casual versus what you type on your essay. You can't put LOL at the end of paragraph 1. Or what, it puzzles and scares me about how we are going to verbally and orally communicate, and how we communicate in written form. Yes?
Alright, so what if you have anxiety? How do you communicate?
Anxiety. So, meaning anxiety speaking in front of crowds?
Yeah.
Zooming, well, if possible, you have someone with you whom you trust, who represents your happy place, your comfort place, and you zero in on that person. You can do some eye contact, but always go back to home base. Is it your mom? Is it your best friend who gives you that knowing glance or that nod? There are some who have mechanisms right up here at the podium, whether it's a paper clip in their hand. Some people like to grip, don't grip too hard, but just something to hold on to, and practice. A lot, just practice, and knowing the material so well, it's like after a while, it's like, I've got this. Yeah, that's a great question though. I still get nervous and anxious. I'm nervous now.
This is what happens when you ask questions.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A for asking questions. I have a question of myself.
About walking in a room with your head down. So a couple months ago, I got voluntold that I had to do a speech in front of at a conference, and I was scared to death. I didn't want to do it.
Was it last minute or you knew ahead of
Well,
time?
no, it was last minute. A week before the conference. So I've been doing my job for 16 years. I know my job. And I shouldn't have been nervous because I knew the material, but I had to come up with the PowerPoint. I didn't know the person I was giving the presentation with. She didn't give me her PowerPoint. So the night before the presentation is when we got it all put together, and I had to get up. I was nervous.
passionate about what you do. It's easy to talk about things that you're familiar with, that you love, and that you know. So keep doing it, and you get better and better and better.
Well, and a good thing that came out of it, I got a consulting job now. So I have a second job now. So I can go
That's what I'm talking about. Am I at 1 minute? They count me down here. Down. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome.
This is such an honor. You have a question?
Yeah, question. What are some exercises that these people can do on a daily basis to improve the enunciation and pronunciation?
I love that.
This is the day that these are good, this one that these are like that.
Yes. So the question to my friends online is, what are some things that we can do daily to hone our communication skills? So I teach digital literacy classes. I teach them to senior citizens at the Urban League and at Indiana University Northwest and at the YWCA of Northwest Indiana. And I also teach children digital literacy. So this summer, at summer camp, we have digital literacy. And last Wednesday, we played a game. We were talking about the parts of a smartphone. And I told them that I am a serial texter, but I don't have time to type. So I use the microphone all the time to talk to text. And it is always my goal to see if the phone will duplicate exactly what I say. And the way to do that is to what? Enunciate. And so I had them lined up. I would give them a sentence, and I would make them say it into the microphone, and they would get a prize if it came out the way that they said it. And it stops what I call the mush mouth. That's one thing. So use that for enunciation. The second thing, obviously, now that we have these devices, is recording ourselves. I'm going to go home and watch this and cringe. Why did I roll my arms? Why did I make that face? But it's that constant critique that makes you get better. And so using your device. And then old school. Sit down, come on in the living room, get some popcorn. I have a presentation next week, and I need you to listen and give me feedback. Now, that's not a daily activity, but get people in your generational circle you trust. Because the millennial is going to tell you one thing, the senior is going to tell you something else, and your colleague is going to tell you something else, and then you can glean from that feedback. And I say to my friends sometimes, for real, do I talk too much, Alicia? You know, tell me, was I talking too much? Am I talking too loud? Am I dominating the conversation? Did I let them speak? Those kinds of things make you an effective speaker. But the last thing I will say is practice your facial expressions. Because the way I look at you will determine whether or not I'm welcome to what you're saying to me, and if I'm receiving what you're saying. And you all, what are the young people? I know what y'all call that, the resting bee face. Even though you're receiving it, your expressions speak volumes. So practice your facial expressions. And sometimes we have to fake it too, like we're really interested. I'm really interested. But those are some of the tips that I take some classes too in public speaking. I also have. Thanks.
Awesome. Awesome job.
All I can say is Chelsea is so telling the truth when it comes to facial expressions. You can ask my dad, like he's sitting right now. I mean, yes, that is my dad. Since I've been able to understand English, he always would say, especially when my mom tells me to do something I don't want to do it, they'll be like, "What you doing? Your face is talking to me," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh!" But I mean, growing up and having that type of experience of always being critiqued on how am I looking even though I'm not saying something has really prepared me for the corporate world, or just even talking to professors or even someone that I know and can feel may not like me. So I definitely say, get in the mirror, look at yourself. How are you talking to somebody? What do you look like? Those are all super important keys. But I'm going to hand it over to Alex to introduce our entrepreneur of the day.
So next speaking, we have Tony Santana. He was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, but currently resides in St. John. He's a passionate leader, driven by faith, his commitment to his family, and building relationships in the communities he serves. He has constantly been a proven high performer, and and a producer for 23 years, leading and managing financial institutions in the Chicagoland and surrounding communities. Throughout his career, he's earned many accolades, recognition, and prestigious awards for growing market share and being a customer service champion. He earned a bachelor's degree in business administration with emphasis on marketing and finance from the University of Evansville. He's earned multiple business certification and has held 6 licenses needed to offer financial services. Tony loves spending time with his lovely wife, daughter, and son. He enjoys anything sports, especially football, baseball, cycling, and racquetball. He thrives on adding value to others, and his enthusiasm is immediately revealed when you experience his presence and story. He currently enjoys being a business banking specialist with U.S. Bank. In this position, he's responsible for helping businesses grow and optimize their cash flow by providing sound advice and best-fitting banking product and services. As a trusted advisor, he takes pride in coaching, inspiring, and sharing the best practices with entrepreneurs, community leaders, and students who aspire to own their own businesses in the future. Everyone please welcome Tony Santana.
Wow. Well, thank you, Alex, and thank you, Faith, thank you, Ironworks, and thank you, Jay's Breakfast Club, another plug there. Wow, and I worked for Chelsea after that. Great job, Chelsea. Following you, I'm just going to have fun and give it a good old college try. That was fantastic. I love the casual, the professional, and the generational communication. I mean, I'm going to take some of those nuggets, those golden nuggets home with me. So job well done. Job well done. Cheers to you. What I'm going to do, just real quick, is again, I'm going to paraphrase what you said, Alex. Born and raised Gary, Indiana. Gary New Wallace High School. Go Hornets. You know what? I've been in the marketplace. You know, graduated in 1990, came out of college in '94, and came back home. And I didn't know what to do with that business degree. I had a business degree, but again, I was from the neighborhood. I was from Gary. I was just happy to have that piece of paper. I didn't know what to do, so I came back home. And I went right back to the job I had at Menards Hardware in Hammond, Indiana. That's all I knew. It's what I knew. Why all my friends were going to get their masters, taking the LSAT, taking the MCAT. I just came back as a manager trainee at Menards, which is a fantastic place. Love Menards. Call myself a Menardian, but I knew there was more. I knew I had to do more. And at 21, 22 years old, I had to figure it out. I had to figure it out, right? Because I didn't want to have that piece of paper that I worked 4 hard years to get to just come back home. But I love Gary. That's why I'm here today. I live in St. John, Indiana now, not too far away, 25 minutes up the road. And I work throughout Chicago, in the Chicago South suburbs, as a business banking specialist. But anyway, just going back to Menards, I knew there was more. So I went and got those 6 licenses, became an insurance agent, a financial advisor. And I worked my way up to different companies. I worked for Citigroup, worked for Roadway Express in Chicago Heights, managed the 705, 710 unions. So I learned how to deal with the unions and the railroads and just the different organizations. Then I put it all together and became a manager in the year 2000 of National City Bank in East Chicago, Indiana, in the harbor. Right? And then that's why I got my banking career started 23 years ago. So worked my way up, worked Gary, Hammond, Maryville, East Chicago, Munster, South Chicago, managed banks everywhere. And you talk about generational communication, you talk about talking to millennials, you talk about different cultures, from Chinatown to Little Village, to the South Side, to the West Side, to Gary, to East Chicago. We call it Guadalajara, Harbor, you know, in East Chicago. So having said all that, I put all that information together to become what they call business banking specialist. And that's why I'm here today to talk about entrepreneurship. I do a little bit of consulting on the side in the past, and what I do is I just really talk about, that's why I tried to talk to a couple people that had different aspirations to own businesses. Like the gentleman, I think he wanted to be a personal trainer, right? Yeah, right there. I mean, there's some marketing out there, there's some IT out here, right? So to find out ways to help all these businesses be successful. So here we go. We're going to tell you all the reasons why. Don't do it. Don't do it. And we're going to get to the reasons why to do it. Got it? Okay. So I don't want to misquote Wikipedia. So we're going to make sure, I'm going to read the notes because I don't want to get it wrong. So as of 2021, Wikipedia, white Americans are the racial majority, and with non-Hispanic whites representing 59.3% of the population. Hispanic and Latino are the largest ethnic minority, comprising of 18.9% of the population, while Black Americans are the largest racial and second largest ethnic minority, making up 12.6%. So know your audience. Like here, know our audience. Know what's out there. Know what those communities are out there. You have to know that, right? When you talk about yourself and what your passion is and what you love to do and what products you want to offer. Know that demographic, number one. Now let's break it down. What's even more important than that is the age demographics. Here we go. 18 to 44, under 18 years old, 22%. So think about that. 18 and under, 22%. 18 to 44 years old, I used to be there, not anymore. That's the big one. There they are. There's your Y, there's your Z, there's your millennials. There they go, 35.9, 36%. That's the target market, right? That's what a lot of businesses are going after right now, that 36%. Keep that in mind when you think about your businesses. Who do you want to sell to? What do you want to sell to them? 36% are between 18 and 44. The next group, 45 to 64 years old, that's 25.2%. So that's a quarter, right? That's us, Gen X. Those are the Gen X. I'm 51 years old. I fit right in the middle, right in now, right? We're a quarter, 25%. And then our elders, 65 and over, those were the baby boomers. Remember, they were a really, really big deal 10, 20, 30 years ago. Well, they're getting smaller now. They're down to 16.8%. Okay? So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your business. When you're thinking about your target markets. Going on. Businesses, 20% of all new businesses fail during the first 2 years of being open. Number one, 20%. 45% during the first 5 years. 45, that's almost half of the businesses that start, get their EIN number, get their articles of incorporation, fail in the first 5 years. 65%, it's a big one, 65% fail in the first 10 years. What does that tell you? I mean, that's almost 7 out of 10 businesses fail. 7 out of 10. So say, okay, how do I get to that 30%? So the good news to that is, right, that eliminates competition. 7 out of 10 will eliminate this if you just stay in the game. Just stay in the game. And that's why we're in this U.S. Bank Bank. We got money to lend. U.S. Bank Club. We got money to lend. There's money out there, and I'll tell you ways how to qualify that. I can talk for an hour on that, but I know I can't. So I'll try to keep it on track. So the reasons businesses fail real quick, they don't satisfy a need, or that need changes. Bad business plan. Ooh, that's a big one. That's a whole nother conversation. Lack of financing. Run out of money. Usually you need your own seed money to start a business, right? Bad location. Jay's Breakfast Club, great job on your location, but I want you back in Glen Park. And inflexibility and rapid expansion. Sometimes you grow too fast. You grow too fast, you bring on too many people, and oh boy, you got to pay these people $20 an hour, $15 an hour, 20 hours, 30 hours, and you can't afford it because your cash flow has changed. So those are the reasons why businesses fail, all right? So why go into business? Well, we can talk about a big business plan. I'm not going to do that because that's a book. You can hire a company to do that for you. You can do it yourself, have fun with it, right? That's a business plan. What I'm going to talk about real quick is called a business model canvas. It's a one-page deal. Faith, shaking your head back there. That's what we want to look at the bank. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? And then we can talk finances behind that. And credit score. That's a whole nother conversation, right? But your credit score is everything. Is everything for business. So the questions we ask, what does your company do? What do you do? What differentiates you? What's your hook? Why should we owe money to you? Why should we help you with your business? Why should I be a consultant in essence through US Bank to help you with your business? What industry are you in? What industry are you really in? I think Uber. Somebody mentioned Uber here. They're just not in the transportation business. No, they're in the data collection business. They're in the logistics. They're in a different business. Uber probably makes more money than they do just riding people around. That's just a way to collect data. Okay? So what industry are you really in? Are you selling popcorn? Are you selling communications? What business are you really in? You're probably in the people business, right? Maybe the people business, Chelsea, right? That's a good people business, right? So, what's unique about you and your business? What's your target customers? It's going to change. It's going to change. Some people like popcorn, then they like cheese popcorn, then they like jalapeno popcorn, then they don't like popcorn at all. Right? Your teeth change. Your taste buds change. You like Miller Lite, you like Coors Light. You don't like beer at all. Now you want to drink those fuzzy things. Other things like that. Yeah, mimosas. You change. People change. They want to drink hard lemonade, but they used to like craft beer once upon a time. So we all change, right? One thing constant is change. That's the truth, right? So what are the features of the products and services that you want to offer? How can you differentiate back to your, being a personal trainer? How do you hire people? How do you train differently? How do you go home and train them? How do you make a video and have them do it? Peloton took the market. Well, that bike's not going to keep them in business. They had to do a treadmill. They had to do different things. They had to get personal training. They had to do yoga. They had to do, so Peloton had to add on different products to keep themselves alive. Okay, so that's what this approach is all about. So the business model canvas is what you want to focus on now, and then you can use that to create your business plan. All right, where you actually put everything together. So that's what we look at US Bank to try to help our businesses grow. All right, and what business are you in? And we have real hard conversations when they come in there with that $100 and their EIN number and the articles of incorporation. Sometimes we talk them into it, or we talk them out of it. Because we don't want to say yes to something that's going to hurt them for the next 5 years, 7 years, 3 years. No, I don't want an application. I don't. I want to help you get the money. Let me say that again. I don't want an application. I want to help you get the funding. If it's not from me, it's from somewhere else. And that business plan is just that. It helps you get funding. It helps you get grants. It helps you get products from municipalities. There's a lot of funding out there. Okay, so that in a nutshell is entrepreneurship. So I didn't scare you away in the beginning, but I wanted to give you the real facts, the numbers. But also the flip side of that is, why do you really want to be an entrepreneur, right? You want that financial freedom, of course. You want that freedom of going wherever you want, when you want, controlling your time. There's one thing we all have that's equal. That's 24 hours in a day. Some of us, most of us sleep 8 of it. So guess what? A third of it's gone right there. So what are you doing with the other 66%, right? What are you doing with that? And that's why entrepreneurship, it's what keeps business bankers like myself going. So I need them. I want them. But I definitely am honest and upfront. And I try to steer people in the right direction with the business. But quite frankly, I'm helping a lot of businesses right now that are doing fantastic in transportation, in sipping it with wine and doing paintings and panini shops and landscaping companies and manufacturing companies. I mean, there are some businesses out there that are driving pallet companies. They just don't make pallets. They sell sawdust. They make special crates. They make special pallets. They work with lumber yards. There's so much to different types of businesses. That's the other thing I'll say. If you're going to do something, figure out a way to add 2 or 3 different spokes out of it that you can make money off of. And we call it side hustle, right? Well, your actual product can also be a side hustle in different derivatives of whatever. Popcorn, again. Some people don't like popcorn, but they like cheese, they like jalapeno, they like caramel. So you create 1,000 popcorns, right? So you're going to satisfy everybody at some point. Right? So keep that in mind when you talk about that. So that's all I got. That's entrepreneurship. And any questions?
Awesome.
Most of you have my business card already? So if you got any questions, go
I
ahead.
have a question for you. So for example, I know there's people here that get started with their business plan. What would be some key points that you want to direct them to on their business plan? What would be some maybe 1 or 2 or 3 key points that you feel that they should add in the business plan?
Number one, do your research. Number one is research. Number two, get with somebody who's successful at doing what you want to do. And try to get them outside of that market. Okay, so let's say you want to open up back to the panini shop. Don't find one that's successful somewhere that you don't want to do it. Because they're only going to give you so many secret sauces to being successful in business. So get with somebody, get a mentor into that business, whether it own trucks, whether it be, manufacturing something for Amazon, or making railings for McDonald's, whatever it may be. Find someone that's doing it, do the research, and then your forecast. You got to make sure you forecast properly, and then prepare for down cycles. And you got to make sure you got to prepare for that. There's no business that is gonna keep going. Time. There's always going to be that ups and downs. Yep.
How high should your credit score be if you want to take out a loan?
Good question. We 700. 700 is a beautiful number. It's a good number. So, we'll look at some 680s for certain types of industries. And then if it's a high-risk industry, we're going to want that 740 to 750, depending on the industry. So that comes into play a lot. We like doctors and dentists and lawyers and accountants and things like that. Sometimes it's hard to do bars or liquor stores. They're a little bit tougher. Or cash businesses. Cash businesses are tough. Why? That's an IRS conversation. We don't have to have. So cash businesses are interesting. They can challenge my time. Anybody else? I'll be happy to have anybody. If you need my information, Faith knows how to get a hold of me. You can meet me at Jay's Breakfast Shop, Breakfast Club. Way to go. 2601 Broadway, right on the north side of 8094.
Details.
It's a little fun. No, this has been great. Again, communication is fun. It is tough to share a message in a certain amount of time. So I didn't want to give too much, but I wanted to give you a little bit of the bad and some of the good. So you understand, I don't want to sell something in the sky like I can't wait to loan everybody $50,000. No, let's take our time. Let's do it right. Do the research and give it your best shot. Love what you do. Find a way to get paid.
Awesome job.
Tony Santa.
I knew she was back there.
Yes. I'm the wildest hornets just lurking.
Yeah.